model is the low end of the scale for digestion. It has no moving parts apart from the fact it has a gas dome that goes up and down. And it's been developed by the Sinext company in India. They make drums for water. This is just two water drums, basically, slightly modified, one inverted in the other. It's the simple scale that you can have all over India. But they've added a pipe with a feed chamber here, so that you can plunge your food through down into it. It goes into the digester, digests, and comes up to the top. This one we bought about a year ago, and it's their most basic model, because what they have on this model is that the outlet is also at the top. And the reason for that is they want to reduce the effect of anything coming in the inlet, not being broken down enough and coming out the outlets if it was at the bottom straight away. But they do a lot of modifications now. They have weights that they can fit on the top and spindles to stop the top from sliding from side to side. And they also are starting a new idea of having a central partition between the inlet and the outlet, so that they can have the outlet at the bottom, so that what comes in the inlet will then be brought to the surface and over the central partition and then have to make its way down. So that maximises the retention time after the gas. I've got a slideshow this afternoon that will show a lot of other different variants of biogas digesters throughout India. What you have to bear in mind is that it's down in India, so we don't need the level of insulation over there. So we're going to try and modify this to suit the UK market with insulation, with anything else that we think will suit, and this is part of our experimentation.
Okay, we've got a bit of time, so if anybody else wants to ask any questions about this or this?
So why is it more beneficial to have the outlet
I don't really know. It's just it's just to, I think it's to extend the retention time for as long as possible. But otherwise you've got to wait before you can start getting digestate out. It's just got to come right up to the top. And another thing that they're also looking at is that because this is for a very rural area, it doesn't matter to a rural farmer in India whether the digestate is sort of hanging up in streaks around the outside of its drum. So they do have a double skinned one, so that there's the actual digester is inside, and there's a water jacket so that it can float up and down on the water jacket, or pushed up and down by the gas on the water jacket, so that it's just algae or something. It's cleaner, much cleaner, because they're trying to promote these to the middle class Indians out there, so they want something that's of a better quality than something as basic. But this was one of their early models. So standard.
These are what I might call continuous flow digesters, and that you're putting waste in all the time and taking gas out. What are your thoughts about batch processing? So we just set up a tank and leave it, and then set up another tank for the increased yield. And then what you do when these are full, if you gradually you're adding stuff over time, they're going to fill up at some point.
Well, as you say, it's continuous. The digestate comes out at the end. You can then put it in a maturing bay or something like that. If it needs to last any longer.
One of the criticisms is that there'll be a small proportion of stuff that just goes straight through and doesn't get.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. That's why they're putting in the central partitions so that it comes in, goes up, and the top goes back down.
Can I add something to that? Because on a small digester, it's not actually continuous flow. I mean, it's every time you feed it. You don't feed it all the time, especially, well, in this case you actually do. But you don't empty it all the time. So for example, if you feed it once every 2 days, you can empty the effluent before you feed it. So you have a minimum retention time of 2 days, for example. But yeah, you have a good point. I think one of the problems with the batch is that you need to grow the bacteria every time. And when you have something like this, you have a nice culture of bacteria that are kind of established and stable.
But one of the reasons we're looking at the small sizes is that they can be modular. So you can have one of these and you can have another one of these. So if it suited you, you could then start filling the fresh one. So then you could alternate between the two if you were happier at leaving it for longer.
Could I just make a point? Not claiming kudos for this design. As I say, it's a well-established German concept. The whole point of this method of stirring as well is that because you stir in a vertical direction, you're stirring like this, you're not stirring side to side, which greatly reduces, well, you see what I mean, you're tending to keep the mixing in discs, if you see what I mean, it's done passing through like that. And the Germans, with the longer ones than this, have actually demonstrated very high quality of gas production or destruction of digestible material.
Is this one of the things that we're going to have to try and work out, those proven retention time, when we do the testing with our CCN's first test group? Because they are byproduct regulations, I think there has to be a certain amount of retention time. I think the exemption that we're looking to work with as well from the Environment Agency also has a 28-day retention time. But those are going to be some interesting conversations we'll have with the regulatory authorities, and we'll try and solve that problem together.
Can you just say that one with how many days retention on that?
It depends on what you're feeding it on, obviously, but typically with food waste it'd be 40 days.
So this one must be even longer in theory if you're not stirring it up.
And if it's running cooler, yes.
Yeah.
But in India, it won't be. It hasn't been.
No, but
this hasn't
even
been tried and tested over here.
no matter how much insulation you put down that, it's going to be something in excess of 40 days, isn't it? Because you're not stirring up what's in there. Would that be fair to say?
Well, you've got to bear in mind this thing is gassing internally.
Bubbling through.
It creates a considerable amount of internal mixing.
Right.
If you do a very slow retention time with a fairly liquid waste, it can self-mix.
Okay.
Because obviously the bubbles bubbling to the top and
Yeah, it might
sort of
be
volcanic,
Yeah.
they'll be
But you
turning.
also say that if the crust seal's too tight, then it can blow up.
Yeah, it depends what you're feeding it on, and if you're running at 40 degrees, the digester is greatly more active
Yeah.
than running at 26 degrees, 25 degrees, which is the typical temperature that the Indian digesters would run at.
And then that doesn't meet the regulations for 65 for...
Absolutely not, no, but that's the
But that's where we have a
Yeah.
pasteuriser unit on the front of that, so we're not expecting, we would kill the
Okay.
bugs if we were looking to meet the ABPR requirements within the digester and temperature. So on this one, which we'll see in a minute, we've got a pasteuriser unit on the front end to meet that particular.
But we're also looking to do, for example, I thought that I might have a tee-off with the gas going back through the inlet with the pipe at the bottom, so that if I wanted to stir it, I could just let the gas run back through, bubble it through.
Okay.
Have something like that, so that a diffuser, so that you could bubble some more gas through as an agitator,
Right,
without
okay.
actually putting any more energy into
Input
the
into
system.
it, yeah.
But these are all things that we're going to come up with when we
Yeah,
start.
absolutely. I'm not trying to do you.
No, that's right.
No, these are all problems that
Yeah.
we're facing and we have to solve them.
I mean, the thing might crud up at the bottom straight away, and I might not be able to do that. You know, there might not be enough gas pressure to do that.
No.
It's an idea that we've come up with, and
Okay.
we're going to have to try out all sorts of things so that we can write them all up at the end and say this works, that doesn't.
Just
Yeah.
a quick question. I mean, so avoiding the crust is you avoid the crust by having a lower temperature as it's digesting.
I don't know. See, the ones that I saw, I've been around India for 5 weeks looking at all different sorts, and they're just so laid back about it all. They don't have any sort of rules and regulations, and it just happens. As far as they're concerned, they're just a farmer or a household, and put the food waste or the cow dung in one end and get something out the other, and the pipe goes off to the kitchen, and they don't worry about testing it with pH paper. They don't worry about any of it. You know, they'll recycle the water to flush something through. They manage to get away with it. So what I want to do is try and make it as simple as possible for people to run, rather than try and promote some sort of product where people feel they've got to run around behind it all the time. You know, people like gas boilers that do that and do that. We're used to it. You know, we don't get on our hands and knees and sort of grate out and that sort of thing. So you've got to make it as user friendly as possible.
Any more questions?